Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Success Podcast. This is officially your last call for entry into the Vacation Rental Management Growth Accelerator Coaching Program, as we will be closing registration on Friday, September 20th. Yes, it's already started, but the good news is it's not too late to join us. So far, we've had the incredible insights from Matt Landau discussing your why and if short-term rental is right for you. And then last week, we enjoyed the deep dive with Alexa Noda from Rent Responsibly, which focused on responsible business practices and the power of safety marketing. All these sessions in the program are recorded. Detailed notes are provided and handy worksheets that are available to print out to make it easier to put these sessions into actionable steps to see the growth you need in your business. With 6 more live sessions to go on topics including own acquisition and retention, creating unforgettable guest experiences, and building high-performing teams, you'll learn from the industry's best and get access to all previous sessions recordings so you won't miss a thing. Whether you're feeling stuck or just ready to grow, it's the perfect time to jump in before we close the doors. The strategies we're sharing will help you navigate the challenges and prepare for even more success in the future. Click the link in the description of this episode on your smart device or head over to vacationrentalformula.com to secure your spot and catch up on all the incredible insights from our guest experts. Trust me, you don't want to miss this opportunity. Now let's get started with today's episode. Here's your host and coach, Heather Bayer.
I'll be heading off to Vermont in early November for the Vermont Short-Term Rental Association conference. This grew out of one person's mission to fight mounting regulatory threats to her self-built business, and it's blossomed into a really strong network of owners and managers who have come together not only to fight those regulations, but to collaborate in raising standards and renting responsibly. In this episode, I'm talking to Julie Marks about the inspiration behind the Vermont Short-Term Rental Alliance, the importance of networking, and how small local alliances can become powerful forces. This is the Vacation Rental Success Podcast, keeping you up to date with news, views, information, and resources on this rapidly changing short-term rental business. I'm your host, Heather Bayer, and with 25 years of experience in this industry, I'm making sure you know what's hot, what's not, what's new, and what will help make your business a success. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Success Podcast. As ever, I am super delighted to be back with you once again. And now we are going into fall. I'm going to be heading down to Tennessee shortly to drop off my RV so I can come back and not worry about the fact that it's going to be snowing here all the way through November, December. And in January, I can just take off back down to Tennessee, pick up the RV and head to Gulf Shores. I don't want to say cannot wait because I'm really trying to make the most of time that I have available for everything now. So I don't want to be wishing it away. But anyway, that's what I'll be doing shortly. And usually at this time of year, you know, when I was running a property management company, we would be getting together and talking about what happened in the summer and what we would do again and what we wouldn't do again. But, you know, there's a lot I don't miss about running a vacation rental management company. Dealing with regulatory issues is pretty much at the top of that list. There's over 350 municipalities in Ontario, and probably half of those are in areas where there are vacation rentals. But when I started the business in 2002, no one cared about rental activity. People have been renting their vacation cottages for decades, although not like they do now, which is more as a business. For them, it was just a way of creating more income or some income to pay the taxes or build up a fund for a project such as a new deck or a dock or an extension. So they'd use the place part of the summer and rent for the rest, all very low key. And there were rarely any issues with neighbours or with townships. The changes started after Airbnb got a foothold in the province and investors started to buy up properties and rent quite a bit more indiscriminately. In the past, we'd really screened guests carefully. And it wasn't that long ago that management companies would be asking for driver's license information, home contents insurance documents, and the names and ages of every person in the group, which of course is not something that anybody is doing these days. We first saw the signs of things to come about 10 years ago as townships began to limit rental activities and place restrictions on some residential areas in some of the resort towns. Then, as more Torontonians began to buy places for retirement and move into them, and that's when the voices against transient residents began to raise. First, one municipality banned all short-term rentals. Others followed suit with less restrictions but more monetary gain by applying licensing. And I'm not saying that is, that's something we should be fighting against. There's nothing wrong with reasonable restrictions and reasonable licensing fees. I think that makes it all a more responsible operation. But one after the other, public meetings were held with more strident anti-Airbnb voices being heard. And after the COVID real estate boom, there were even more draconian measures put in place. Some cottage rental companies, ours included, operated across multiple municipalities. And you can imagine how difficult it was keeping tabs on all the different regulatory criteria for each one. It became almost a full-time job. Eventually, we created an Association of Ontario Property Managers, and that's grown to represent dozens of companies now with activities across the province. We'd been helped by Rent Responsibly in the early days of our association with really good advice and resources. And I know that today's guest has had a good relationship with them since she founded the Vermont Short-Term Rental Association in 2021. So Julie Marks is a homesteader. She has 2 of her own rental properties and a small portfolio of managed homes in Vermont. She served on the Government Affairs Committee for VRMA and is passionate about bringing people together to tackle regulatory and compliance issues, as well as raising standards across the board in our industry. With the conference in Vermont just over 6 weeks away, I wanted to talk to her about the power of bringing like-minded people together and how being small and local can create a really powerful force. So I'm super excited to have with me today Julie Marks from the Vermont Short-Term Rental Association. And I'm particularly happy to talk to Julie today because in a matter of 5 or 6 weeks, I think, I'll be heading to Vermont for the association conference, and I'm really looking forward to it, getting together with people that I've known for so long, like Tyann Marsink and Justin Ford and Sibylla Kim, and meeting Julie, who I'm talking to today in person. That will be fantastic. So yes, altogether, welcome, Julie. It's great to have you on board to talk about the conference, to talk about networking and regulations and all that fun stuff.
Thank you, Heather. It's so nice to be on the show with you. And I'm thrilled as well that you'll be in Vermont in a matter of weeks and sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge with us. Really looking forward to all of this.
Well, interestingly, I've been in Canada for 22 years now, and I've never been to Vermont, and it's just over the border.
I know. It's South Canada, essentially. Yes. So we're excited to have you.
Yeah, I know. I went and Mike and I went and spent a couple of days with Kerry Gibson at Chalet Huga in the Eastern Townships. And we went out to dinner on the first night, and it was a beautiful lakeside restaurant. And she was saying, across the water, there's Vermont.
Love it. Love it. Well, we'll be happy to host you during our new famous season of the Sticks, so you'll get a unique view.
Sorry, I hadn't heard of that before. Season of the Sticks means?
Oh, in Vermont, we pride ourselves on having 7 seasons in the year, and one of them in November, when our conference is this year, is famously known as our Sticks season. It's typically when no tourists are in town, but all the leaves have fallen off the trees, but the snow hasn't fallen yet to cover everything in white. And so you can just kind of see through the forest. It has a beauty all of its own.
I love November. It is so quiet and still and, as you say, bereft of tourists.
Yes, yes, it's a really peaceful time.
So we're going to talk today about the conference that's going on in November. We'll come back to that a little bit later on, but I wanted to really start out by asking you how you actually got involved in the vacation rental business. And I want you to tell us a little bit more about homesteading, because that was so interesting when I saw it in your bio. So you're going to need to explain that in your intro.
Yeah, absolutely. I am somebody who definitely didn't start out with any intention to join the vacation rental industry. But as my kind of life evolved and I found myself living in a big city and very much missing my rural upbringing, like the surroundings of my rural upbringing in Vermont, I became very interested in this concept of homesteading, living off the land, being self-sufficient, growing my own food, and just reducing my impact on the world. And so my partner and I did a bunch of studying on homesteading. I became a certified master gardener. We found a property in the foothills of Vermont where we could build a garden, a big vegetable garden and fruit garden and all this, but we were taking a page out of literally a book called The Good Life, which was written by a couple of original Vermont homesteaders from the 1930s. And one of the lessons that they taught is that as a homesteader, you still need a cash crop. And their cash crop was maple syrup. They had a bunch of sugar maples on their property, and they were able to harvest and sell for cash maple syrup because, of course, we all know we can't fully live in a cashless economy. So we don't have any sugar maples on our property. And after hemming and hawing for some time as to what our cash crop might be, we landed on a vacation rental. So we built a little cabin, a little mother-in-law on the corner of our property. We also created a designated guest suite within our own home. And we began inviting the public, the traveling public, to come and vacation and experience our homestead. And it's really taken off from there.
That's fantastic. I love hearing origin stories, and that is such a great one, because you started this out because it was a means. It was definitely a means to an end to create the cash that you needed to complement what you were doing on the homestead. Sounds fantastic. But you do more than that now, don't you?
Yes. So while our start into vacation renting was certainly a solution to building our homesteader's lifestyle that we were interested in creating for ourselves, we have since found ourselves taking on more and more. And really, this is through my family's influence. I come from a father who was a small-scale landlord when I was growing up, and my mother, who in her retirement became an innkeeper. And I have over time essentially acquired the home that was once the bed and breakfast that my mother ran and has been in our family since the 1990s, early 1990s. And my father has become interested in the short-term rental landscape as well. And so at this point now I'm managing 9 different units, a mixture of long-term rentals, medium, the seasonal rentals, and the traditional short-term vacation rental. So it's quite the job.
Yes, and that was when did you start? When did you start with your first property?
The first property was the one on our homestead in 2018.
Okay, so not that long ago then.
No, not that long ago at all.
So, moving on from that, what inspired you to start up the Vermont Short-Term Rental Association? Is it an association or an alliance?
Well, it's an association. The alliance is just in the title. In retrospect, I should have named it the Short-Term Rental Association. So that's a lesson.
I've been naming it for you.
Yeah, most people do. I'm not sure what the difference is, but VSTRA was really inspired out of self-preservation from regulatory threats. My partner and I had, moved back to Vermont with this dream of being able to create this new lifestyle for ourselves, one, that gave us that flexibility and freedom to work the land the way that we wanted to and take care of properties and maintain landscapes that was important to us. But after 2 years of pouring literally all of our blood, sweat, and tears into building this business and this lifestyle, we were faced with regulations, first from the town, from the municipality, and then from the state. And I just felt so utterly wronged and unseen and misunderstood that I just couldn't stay quiet and I couldn't do nothing. I had to do something. And I wasn't alone either at that point. Through the process of learning about the regulations that our town was proposing and attending those meetings, we began to emerge naturally as a community. I think communities do form naturally when you have a common denominator. And once we found that kind of core, all I really did was step up and say, okay, I'll take this on as a leader, and built a website.
How did you start connecting those, with other short-term hosts? Because I know when we did this in Ontario, it was just property managers. So it was more of a property managers association. And I think there were a few of us who said, no, come on, we should open this out to independent hosts as well. But there were a couple of very vocal managers who said, no, we don't want any independent hosts on here. They don't uphold the same standards as we do, and we could be just letting anybody in, which I think personally was a really short-sighted view. And what then happened is that as more and more regulations came along, is that smaller networks started popping up all over the place. And there's probably about 20 or 30 of these smaller little associations of independent hosts and this one larger managers association. And I look at it now and I think, well, this is crazy. All these people have the same goals. They're addressing the same situations, and they're all having multiple meetings where one would do, and when I looked at yours, it is a combined effort.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it just is that way because of, obviously my perspective where I come from as an individual host and not a property manager of other people's homes, but also that's just a product of kind of the landscape here in Vermont. We, the majority of our vacation rentals are independently owned and managed. I think only about 20% of our vacation homes are managed by professional local companies. So, that's the management companies, they had not formed an association for themselves at that time. I certainly looked for that originally when I was kind of floundering in this state of who's representing us, who's on our side here, when you're talking to the state legislature, because it really shocked me that nobody was, like, that this was such a solid industry with such a deep-rooted history in Vermont going back decades, far beyond the advent of Airbnb. I just couldn't believe that this industry wasn't being represented in some kind of way. So yeah, our membership, our community with the Alliance is really just a reflection of what the vacation rental community looks like here in Vermont.
So still sort of 80% independent hosts and around 20% managers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, and just kudos to you for bringing these people together, because it, I know from other things that I've tried in the past, it can be just like herding cats to to bring everybody sort of not just into the same room but onto the same talking from the same page, basically. So, I mean, how do you do that? Because you've got to bring people together, and then regulations are not the easiest thing to discuss, particularly if you've got different municipalities with different thoughts on regulations. What challenges did you face when just trying to get everyone on the same page?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was certainly part of our early days, struggles and development as an association. But ultimately, what we had to do was establish some standards, which have eventually become a part of our criteria for membership. And so early on, we knew that one of the big problems or challenges we were facing in the conversations we were having with the community, with regulators, was what to do about those people who are quote unquote bad actors, who are operating to a lower standard that the majority of us wouldn't approve of anyways and wouldn't behave in that manner to begin with. So we really set out to create a set of standards that would distinguish the good from the bad apples, so to speak. And so we really rally around the standards that we believe are achievable, are reasonable, and are the basic safety and community and good business practices that everybody who is partaking in the short-term rental activity should be following at a baseline. So we really rally around that. And yeah, of course, I in the beginning had people calling us up, furious that the fire marshal was in their cabin telling them to install fire alarms. And, at some point you have to draw that line. And, we've said, yeah, if you're renting out your cabin, you need to have fire alarms.
Yeah, that seems pretty much a no-brainer. I've just just interviewed Justin Ford about safety, and he was talking about some of the real tragedies that have happened in the past year or so. And we started off talking about fire that was in Long Island, I think 2 years ago, where that killed 2 teenage girls. And it was the owner's fault, and they were charged just 2 weeks ago with 29 misdemeanors. And they're all relating to smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms and doing DIY creations, which included a barbecue, which ultimately caused the fire. And they're waiting for their sentencing now. But one of the and I can't remember what the charges were, but I'll put a link to that on the show notes, and people can go listen to that episode with Justin and hear more about that, because you can't look at these things anymore and say, well, that's never going to happen to me.
Right. No, absolutely. You cannot compromise on safety. You do not grandfather in old safety codes that do not apply anymore. And because safety is paramount, and it's number one, and that should be the priority for every operator, whether, you are hosting somebody in your own home or you are managing a suite of properties. It's just hands down number one, non-negotiable, safety first.
Yeah. And great that you have that in your standards too. So what benefits have the membership of VTSTRA had on, for your members?
Well, I think we have really been able to do a lot for this community and even beyond the members that we have within our association, but for the larger industry, because we are able to bring those types of conversations and education to them for the first time. We are also bringing better enforcement and relations between state officials and short-term rental operators in ways that weren't able to be facilitated in the past. So, we've worked really hard to partner with the state agencies in housing and safety and health and natural resources to ensure that we are an aid in compliance when it comes to really important basic health and safety standards that already exist and that people just might not be aware of because there's no magic trigger that happens when suddenly you decide to rent out a bedroom in your room. Nobody's alerted that you're doing this and kind of like becoming a landlord or a housing provider. It's yes, once you do that, you fall under different legal obligations, but there's not a really good system in place that catches people at the very beginning or even before they venture into that realm to really understand what their legal requirements are. So we have ended up being a very important resource for especially new operators who are searching for resources when they're getting started and finding us, which is excellent and a perfect time to, opt in and take advantage of all the resources that we offer. But we're also have become an incredibly valuable resource to the state who reach out to us when they need to send messages to vacation rental owners about new fire safety requirements, their interactions with visitors, when they need assistance in housing after some of the huge flood disasters that we've had in Vermont the past couple of years. So there's a lot of ways in which creating this association has brought visibility to this community in a way that didn't exist ever before and has generated some really, really positive relationships and a much better understanding of how the vacation rental community is really intertwined or, a part of the fabric of Vermont's local economies.
Did you find when you started engaging with local and state officials that some of them had completely no idea what this business was about?
Oh, absolutely. And to this day, I mean, that's the job security, I guess, in this association world is every cycle there are new people coming into office, whether it's in, a municipality or it's at the state. And we have to start over every time with education and awareness and understanding. And I think my favorite line from one of our legislators was, it's not that I have a problem with short-term rentals. It's the Airbnbs I don't like. And that's the point where you kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, that's where we are starting from with you.
And that's where I was coming from with that question about the people who have no idea, because I spent time working with Catherine Ratcliffe over the last sort of 9 months or so, leading up to the Can Stays Rental Alliance conference in Banff. And she brought in politicians and people from the legislature and local people and even federal politicians. It does help that Catherine's brother was the Conservative leader for some time and only narrowly missed becoming Prime Minister. So he was able to come along and talk, as was another minister from another party. So it was interesting. But with all these people in the room, they were needing to be educated because all they could say is it's Airbnb. And
right.
I come from buying properties in the 1990s and renting them out way before Airbnb, way before
right.
it wasn't way before VRBO because that was out there then, but before the what Verbo is now. And I seem to still do a lot of educating these days to say rentals didn't start in 2014 when Airbnb really hit our vacation rental scene. They've been going for a long, long time. And yes, trying to create that distinction, but also telling people it really is, the concept is one and the same, but there are different ways that people manage them. So that was what prompted that question, because I was sure you've gone through exactly the same thing when it's an Airbnb, isn't it?
Right. No, and we do a lot of work to try to change the narrative and the vocabulary, especially starting within our membership, but then just more broadly within our regulating community, within our general community, because it is the source of a lot of false perceptions and misunderstanding. And so language is very important. Words matter. And so, yeah, we have worked really hard to try to, educate people on the definitions and what is the difference between a legal definition and an industry term. And we found that really when you were speaking to government officials, whether they're at the state level or the local level, there's no real cookie cutter way to educate somebody. It all has to be customized. It all has to be personalized because everybody does start from their own place and have their own preconceptions formed already that you have to kind of dig into and discover in order to break down and really help them understand what it is that they might be afraid of, because it usually turns out to be something completely different than just the fact that somebody is renting their house short term.
Yeah, we've we face a lot of these issues, and I remember driving down a road once. I was going to see a property that the owner had just bought this property and wanted it to bring it onto our rental program. And as I drove down this road, I was faced with this barrage of signs all the way down the road. No Airbnb, get Airbnb out of here. And I realized by the time I got to this house, as it was, I could not rent that property for them because there were clearly going to be a few neighbor issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a key challenge anywhere, and which is why it's so important to have a local community association of hosts and managers because they're the ones who are responsible for those neighbor relations. And so if you are an owner and you're not on site, you absolutely have to employ some other additional strategies for ensuring that you are not creating a nuisance to your neighbors. And because that is 100% where these regulations start every single time. It's from one complaint, one person who continues to show up and complain to their town officials until they finally do something about it. And it might be a one-off thing, that really doesn't warrant a widespread policy, but that doesn't seem to be a factor that matters to municipal lawmakers. They listen to the squeaky wheel, and it's our responsibility to keep them greased.
Yes. While I was in Banff, I met a guy who, Ben. His name was Ben, and I can't remember his last name, and I'm sorry, but I'll put a link to Ben Pereira, I have remembered. So I met this guy called Ben Pereira, who runs a company called Neighbourly North in the Yukon, in Whitehorse. And we talked about, and he was talking about being a voice at the table, and his voice at the table became his seat on the housing committee.
Absolutely. Well, that's what they say. If you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So bring your own chair if you have to. And that's really how we got our start into the door. We just showed up unexpectedly. And I remember, I'll never forget the looks on the faces the first time we did this. We registered to participate in our state tourism conference to kind of introduce ourselves to other tourism players. And the first item on that agenda was an open board meeting from the Lodging Association. And at that time, this was before the pandemic, which really changed the tides in terms of who was coming after short-term rentals. It started in 2019 as the hotel industry was really lobbying against vacation rentals as unfair competition and, uneven playing fields, et cetera. So they weren't super friendly to us, but I showed up to their board meeting and just sat and listened. And I've never seen a group of adults more uncomfortable and nervous than in that moment. And I didn't really understand at that time the impact that I was having, or that I wasn't expected to have actually shown up and attended this open meeting. But we did, and it's led to every other connection that we've been able to make and every other door that we've been able to open. So just showing up and inserting yourself. I'm here.
That's what I hear from so many people who've done this. So for those people who are out there listening who are thinking that, that they don't have a group or an alliance in their local area, what advice would you give them? What should they do? What should they not do?
I firmly believe that every single state, every single province, every single country needs to start organizing if there's a vacation rental community in your area, because it's not a matter of if regulations come to your neck of the woods. It's just a matter of when. In the United States, at least, if you are looking to start an alliance or an association for the vacation rental community, number one, find out if anybody else is doing it already first. I highly recommend the Rent Responsibly website, rentresponsibly.org, to search for alliances. They have a great map directory where you can find all of the registered vacation rental associations. See if there's something already started in your area. If so, join them. If not, start one. And Rent Responsibly now has an amazing suite of resources and services even to help people get up and running with an association. So there is no starting from scratch anymore. We have really done a lot of that legwork already, and there's been so much experience developed over the past 5-10 years now in the realm of vacation rental associations that you are certainly not alone, and you do not have to reinvent the wheel. So there are a ton of great resources through them, and that is the whole purpose of their existence. So hopefully you can put a link to that as well for listeners to learn more about Rent Responsibly and their network of alliances.
And yes, after this call with you, I am going straight over to one with Alexa Nota. So,
perfect.
From Rent Responsibly. So yes, we're going to be talking about regulations and the same sort of thing within a coaching program that we're doing with property managers to encourage them to go out and connect with others. I in Ontario, when I started my company in 2002, and nobody talked to anybody at that time. And it wasn't until around 2015 that I was able to have a decent conversation with a competitor, really one of my local other property managers, who I met at a VRMA conference, and we sat down and we had coffee, and it's like, oh gosh, we're real people and we all do exactly the same thing. Why aren't we talking? And he shared some things that I was able to put in place in my business that made a massive difference. It was what I used to call it the one conversation that changed our business. And it was a conversation with another manager who was willing to share. And what he shared and what I put in place in my business made absolutely no difference to how competitive our businesses were. It just simply made ours better. And it was a piece of sharing that made me really think, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we getting out and bringing everybody in together and talking about our shared experiences and how we can work together to make our little world better for everybody, for our guests and for our owners and for our communities. And
it's so true. It's so true. I mean, one of the things that I love the most about being a part of this community and leading this community is being able to remove that layer of competition or that lens of looking at another business owner as a competitor, and rather looking at them as an ally and a source of information and support. And that is it's just been so organic, really. I think, especially when you start from a place of shared pain, meaning the regulations, you're on the same team. It really helps to, change that lens and see your neighboring business as more of a partner than a competitor. And I think, at the community level, we all benefit when we're all stronger. So I agree. I'm always happy to see that and love to foster any way that we can as an association to help nurture those kind of business to business collaborations, and remove that sense of competition. I think in Stowe here, our community had to come together recently around some proposed regulations, and it was because of VTSTRA that we were able to get all of the big property managers along with individual homeowners in a room together. And some of these big companies that have been around for decades had never met each other before. And now they're essentially like friends. So it's just wonderful too when you can build a community and bring people together to rally around a common cause, to learn something new, and to develop relationships that just go far beyond the work that we're doing today.
Yeah, I love it, and I certainly did love it when we got together as a network or as an organisation up in Ontario, and we had 2 or 3 face-to-face meetings where everybody tore themselves out of their little locations and their boroughs and headed off somewhere, and we actually met face-to-face, which I think is just it's an absolute must do, which brings me to really the conference. But before that, how do you keep you have the annual conference, but how else do you keep people connected and engaged within the Alliance?
Yeah, well, we offer a number of ways for people to engage. Everybody's different. People like to participate at different levels or in different ways. So we host virtual meetings monthly. Every month, it's open to all of our members. We call it our State of STR Affairs meeting, and that's an opportunity for all of our members to come together, have a chat with myself and our hired lobbyists to get updates on regulations and also share what's going on in their communities in terms of advocacy regulation, and a really good one-on-one time for us to support people in their personal situations and advise them on strategies or point them to resources to help them wherever they're at in their advocacy efforts locally. So that's great. And then member to member in that meeting, the sharing of experience and knowledge of what worked in this town. You could try this here. This didn't work for us. Watch out for this law, or this rule. We got our hands slapped for doing this. It's invaluable. And that's a really easy way for people to kind of, join virtually from wherever they are. We also try to hold in-person gatherings as much as possible, just because, like you said, nothing beats that face-to-face connection. So we do quarterly meetups that are free and open to the public. We call them Sip and Stirs, Sip and STRs. Get it? And, we try to engage the local business community by hosting them at breweries and distilleries and cideries and coffee shops. So get the business community kind of connected to us, and have a space where we can just gather casually and just get to know each other, and maybe invite a friend that doesn't know about the association to come learn about us more. And then, of course, we have our annual conference, which is really our big multi-day event for education, networking, and member bonding, so to speak.
So is this just open for members, or is this can people come from elsewhere?
It's absolutely open to anybody. We do encourage our members to attend. Our members are given a 40% discount on the conference registration. Again, this is part of our goal of ensuring that our memberships are the best stewards of the industries that they can be. We want them to get this continual education around safety and regulations and hospitality so that we are never the ones who are causing or triggering the complaints. So, but it is open to anybody. We highly encourage anybody who's in property management, anybody who's a homeowner considering entering the industry. That's always really the best time to get to do your education and professional development investment is at the beginning. And we always invite all of our local elected officials and candidates to attend because they are the ones who truly benefit the most from face time with this community.
So what's happening then at the event this year? What could, if somebody's listening and they're thinking, well, you know, I'm not far away, I'm in Pennsylvania or New York State or even in Ontario, what could I expect by going?
Well, we are so excited to be bringing some of the biggest names and superstars together at this event, including our wonderful host, Heather Bayer, to learn all about what not to do in your vacation rental business. But we have a heavy focus this year on standing out and out competing. So if you are really concerned right now in this point in time that you are either entering a marketplace that's a little bit saturated or you're maybe seeing a drop in your bookings or occupancy and you are trying to find ways to optimize your earnings and your ROI, that is what we are going to be focusing on. So there are a lot of different ways in which you can optimize your business, you know, whether it's through new amenities, new marketing, different approaches to reservations. So we're going to have all of those experts in one room talking to us about all the different ways that you can, whether you own a large company, small company, or an individual owner, there are always ways that you can improve the efficiency of your business, attracting what people are looking for now. And we've got a lot of great vendors in the room with the tools and services that we think will be most effective and useful for helping people achieve those goals.
So I note that you have Justin Ford coming. No doubt he's going to be talking about safety. And
yes, Justin Ford is a fan favorite. Last year, we also had him give a presentation on safety, and he actually sent one attendee running out the room to go do something at her rental that scared her so much. That was obviously needing addressing. So I always love to have Justin Ford. Again, safety is where we win every time with advocacy. And yes, absolutely love getting as many people in front of him and hearing his message as much as I can.
And I can't really not mention my friend Tyann Marsink as well.
Tyann, another superstar. I know it's an awesome lineup. Tyann is fabulous, and as the queen of guest experience and all things guest communication, I never know what I'm going to learn from her, but I know that I'm going to learn something, and she's going to surprise us. And I'm really grateful to have her in the room as well. I've been fortunate to spend some time with her recently as she has ventured into the world of advocacy more and more herself, unfortunately for her. But she is just such a strong leader, and her wealth of knowledge just continues to expand.
Well, I'm going to make sure that all the information on the VTSTRA conference is on the show notes. So, regardless of whether you live in Vermont or not, I think it's a smaller conference. It's a type of conference I absolutely love because you have much better conversations, you have much lengthier conversations and much deeper conversations, I think, than trying to get through the crush of the VRMA crowd, when there's 2,500, 3,000 people there. Having a smaller group of people it's so much more focused and concentrated. I love it. So if you get the opportunity, go take a look at the website, and I hope to see lots of people there. I'm going to see lots of people I've never met before, which will be absolutely lovely. And I will meet you face to face.
I'm so looking forward to that. And you're so right. I think we get so much from those more intimate, settings where you can have more conversations. Our attendees will be able to talk to you directly, which is not always the case at bigger conferences. You don't get to speak to every speaker or every vendor in a way that actually has an impact on the way you run your business. But that is exactly what we intend to accomplish at this event. And it's just always so much fun. We all feel good when we learn something new and make new business connections, and just are in a room with our people, like this is a really passionate community, and we're passionate about, the integrity of our homes and the excellence of our hospitality and the stewardship of our location and our culture. But I think this community, there's a lot within that is accessible to people from all backgrounds and all beliefs. We in this room, we all find something in common. We all have something in common, and it's so lovely to be around. It's something we don't get enough of these days.
Well, I shall look forward very much to being there, to meeting you. And I just want to thank you so much for spending the time with me today and exploring this world of regulations and networking and getting out there and getting a seat at the table. So thank you so much, Julie, for joining me.
Thank you, Heather, for inviting me and allowing me to share about VTSTRA and about the importance of building communities locally.
Thank you so much, Julie Marks from the Vermont Short-Term Rental Alliance. And I look forward to meeting Julie in person in just a 6 weeks or so time, which is absolutely wonderful. Can't wait for that. I love these smaller conferences. I always come away way more inspired than motivated than some of the larger ones. Looking forward to that. If anybody is going or thinking about going, would like to have more information on what's going on, and you'd like to talk to me or talk to Julie, just get in touch, heather@vacationrentalformula.com, and I will give you as much information and help as I can. Okay, that's it for this week. It's been an absolute pleasure, always a pleasure, to bring this really great information and conversation to you. I do hope you enjoy it. Love to hear from you if you've got any ideas for future episodes. We're up to about 580 now, and I'm still coming up with ideas and new people and different ways of presenting things. But I'm always open to new ideas. And if you email me, I'll email you back, and we'll have a conversation, and you bring me something new. That would be fantastic. So for now, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be with you again next week. It's been a pleasure as ever being with you. If there's anything you'd like to comment on, then join the conversation on the show notes for the episode at vacationrentalformula.com. We'd love to hear from you, and I look forward to being with you again next week.